Imagine sitting in a diner, minding your own business, when suddenly someone rips your shirt in public. Humiliating, right? Now imagine the person you just embarrassed is the sister of the most feared motorcycle gang in the country. What would you do next? This hook immediately grabs attention, evokes empathy, and builds suspense. It was a typical afternoon at a small-town diner, one of those cozy, classic places with red vinyl booths, the faint smell of fried bacon lingering in the air, and the soft hum of old rock music playing from a corner jukebox. The sun streamed in through the large windows, casting a warm glow across the checkered floor. Patrons were scattered around the diner, sipping coffee, scrolling on their phones, or chatting quietly with friends. Everything seemed ordinary, almost mundane, the kind of calm that makes you feel completely safe. Then, in an instant, that calm was shattered. A group of rowdy young men entered, their laughter loud and careless, cutting through the gentle buzz of the diner. They were the kind of people who made their presence felt simply by walking into a room, their confidence bordering on arrogance. One of them, taller than the rest, spotted a girl sitting alone in a booth near the window. She had a quiet, composed demeanor, headphones on, lost in her music, completely unaware of the chaos that was about to erupt. Without warning, one of the men reached across the table, grabbed her shirt, and tore it. The sound of fabric ripping seemed to echo unnaturally in the diner, drawing every eye toward them. Shock froze the girl in place, her cheeks flushed with a mix of anger, embarrassment, and disbelief. Patrons gasped, murmurs rippled through the room, and a few brave souls looked like they might intervene. The sheer audacity of the act left everyone stunned. It wasn't just an attack on her clothing, it was an attack on her dignity, a brazen display of disrespect in the middle of a public space. The girl's initial reaction was a mix of disbelief and self-defense. She tried to cover herself, her hands trembling slightly, and her eyes locked onto the aggressors with a fire that seemed almost unnatural for such a quiet setting. Meanwhile, the men, oblivious to the consequences, laughed and nudged each other, thinking it was just a harmless prank, not realizing the gravity of what they had done. Their sense of superiority and invincibility made them blind to the reality of the situation. They were about to provoke someone far more powerful than they could imagine. As the tension built, the diner became a silent stage where every patron held their breath, waiting for the next moment. The girl's calm, stoic posture contrasted sharply with the aggressor's arrogance, creating a palpable energy in the room. The air felt thick, almost electric, as if the diner itself sensed that something extraordinary, and potentially dangerous, was about to unfold. What the rowdy men didn't know, what not a single patron in the diner realized at that moment, was that the girl they had just humiliated was far from ordinary. She wasn't just another diner, goer lost in her music or wrapped up in her own world. She was the sister of one of the most feared and respected members of the hellsangels, a name that carried weight, fear, and respect in equal measure. In that instant, the balance of power shifted, though the aggressors remained blissfully unaware. The girl's appearance gave nothing away. With her casual jeans and simple top, she looked like someone you'd pass by without a second thought. Her demeanor was quiet, almost unassuming. But beneath that calm exterior lay a lineage that commanded attention, an unspoken authority inherited from her brother. Among the hellsangels, family ties are sacred. Crossing one member often means crossing them all. It was a world governed by loyalty, codes, and a strict sense of justice, and she carried that weight silently, like a storm contained behind composed eyes. As the men continued to laugh, mocking her and oblivious to the danger, the room seemed to hum with tension that only some could sense. The girl, though outwardly composed, was already calculating, observing every move, every detail about the aggressors. Her eyes held a quiet intensity, a calm that could quickly erupt into something far more formidable. The irony was sharp. These men, acting with the confidence of invincibility, had no idea who they were dealing with. This hidden identity was more than just a familial connection. It represented a power that could turn the situation upside down in an instant. Every small action in that diner now carried enormous risk. What the men saw as a harmless prank, a shirt ripped for a laugh, was actually a potential spark in a powder keg. To the girl, this was more than humiliation. It was a test, a moment where patience, perception, and composure mattered as much as raw strength. For the onlookers, the situation remained ordinary, almost mundane, because appearances were deceiving. Few realized the tension simmering beneath the surface, the invisible line that had just been crossed. The girl's calm exterior masked a lineage of respect and fear that the aggressors couldn't comprehend. And in that deceptive calm, the story was already setting the stage for consequences far beyond what anyone in the diner could imagine. In that fleeting moment, the diner became more than a casual eatery. It became a stage for a silent clash of worlds. Ordinary ignorance meeting hidden power, arrogance facing loyalty, and disrespect unknowingly flirting with danger. In the world the girl came from, family isn't just important, it's everything. Loyalty runs deeper than words. It's a code, a bond that cannot be broken, and one misstep can ignite consequences no outsider could ever predict. The Hells Angels, like many tight-knit organizations, operate on an unspoken set of rules. Protect your own, respect the family, and never underestimate the cost of disrespect. For the girl, being part of that lineage meant that every slight against her wasn't just personal. It was a challenge to a legacy of honor and loyalty that had been forged over decades. As the men in the diner laughed, mocking her and thinking she was powerless, they unknowingly crossed a line that went far beyond social norms. They had no idea that her presence there carried the invisible shield of her brother's influence and the respect commanded by the Hells Angels. In this world, family is a force multiplier. One person's anger can ripple out to an entire network of people who share the same blood, the same allegiance, and the same unyielding code of retribution. Family loyalty also shapes the way members of these circles respond to threats or insults. It's not about revenge in a petty sense, it's about honor. Every action against a family member sends a message: you've violated a boundary, and boundaries in this world are not flexible. The girl's composure in the diner was more than calmness. It was strategic restraint. She knew that any rash reaction could escalate too quickly, but her silence did not mean weakness. Her identity and her connections meant that consequences were inevitable. They were just waiting to be unleashed at the right moment. For those outside this world, such dynamics might seem extreme, even shocking. But within these circles, loyalty is measured not by words but by deeds. It dictates behavior, commands respect, and ensures survival. The girl, though appearing quiet and unassuming, embodied these principles fully. She had grown up understanding that family ties were sacred and that crossing them, even unknowingly, could change someone's life in a matter of seconds. The diner in that moment became a quiet battlefield of hidden power. The men, oblivious to the family code they had triggered, were playing a dangerous game. They laughed at her, unaware that loyalty and respect are forces that, once engaged, rarely back down. Every movement the girl made, every glance, every shift of posture, was informed by her understanding of the world she came from. A world where family isn't just blood, it's protection, authority, and influence all rolled into one. The instant the shirt tore, the diner seemed to pause. Time slowed, as if everyone inside was holding their breath, caught in the fragile tension of the moment. The girl's initial shock was visible. Her eyes widened, her hands instinctively clutching the ripped fabric. But beneath that momentary disbelief, something deeper stirred. There was a spark in her gaze, a quiet fire that hinted at the storm brewing just beneath the surface. The aggressors, on the other hand, were laughing, jostling each other with the careless arrogance of people who believed they were untouchable. They had no idea how close they were to crossing a line that should never be crossed. Patrons of the diner froze in a mixture of fear, curiosity, and disbelief. Some leaned forward in their booths, trying to understand what had just happened. A few of the braver onlookers considered intervening, but the girl's calm, unshakable presence made even the boldest hesitate. There was something about her stance, straight, backed, eyes fixed on the offenders, lips pressed in a subtle, almost imperceptible line, that conveyed a warning louder than any shout could. It was the silent aura of someone who didn't need to raise a hand to command attention or respect. Meanwhile, the aggressors continued, oblivious to the tension swelling around them. They thought the girl's quietness was fear, that her lack of immediate retaliation meant she was powerless. But in reality, every second of her composed silence was a calculated moment, a test of the situation. Her body language, the tilt of her head, and the steady gaze weren't signs of submission. They were signals that the scales were about to tip. Each laugh, each crude comment from the men was another thread woven into a growing web of consequences, and the girl, though outwardly calm, was already weighing the response that would uphold her family's honor. The energy in the diner was almost palpable. Patrons could feel it, even if they didn't fully understand it. The invisible shift in power, the silent warning hanging in the air. The girl's connection to her brother, to the world of the hellsangels, radiated from her presence alone. Even without a single word, the aggressors were unknowingly teetering on the edge of danger. Every second that passed added to the tension, each moment stretching the fragile veil between a simple act of disrespect and a potentially explosive reaction. In that charged atmosphere, it became clear that this was no ordinary diner incident. What had started as a careless, reckless prank had ignited a situation with far-reaching consequences. The aggressors' laughter, once loud and confident, began to falter as the weight of unseen forces, the power of family, loyalty, and reputations, lowly pressed down upon them. The immediate reaction wasn't just the girl's composure. It was the subtle, undeniable shift in the entire diner, a silent warning that the rules of this world had already been set. Sometimes the smallest actions carry the heaviest consequences. The men in that diner thought ripping a stranger's shirt was a trivial, almost humorous act, a harmless prank that might earn them laughs from their friends. But in reality, it was a blatant violation of respect, a disregard for boundaries that should never have been crossed. This incident, seemingly small, became a powerful lesson in how arrogance and ignorance can escalate situations far beyond what anyone imagines. The moment illustrated that disrespect isn't just offensive, it can trigger consequences that ripple far beyond the immediate scene. Respect, in many ways, is the silent currency of human interaction. It's something that cannot be demanded but must be earned or extended voluntarily. Ignoring it or violating it carelessly can be dangerous. In the world the girl belonged to, respect is not a suggestion, it's a rule. Her family, bound by unbreakable loyalty and a code of conduct forged through years of experience, represents the stakes of disrespect. To mock or harm one member is to risk provoking the entire network of that family, and in that environment, the consequences are swift, decisive, and unflinchingly serious. The lesson here extends beyond the subculture of motorcycle gangs. It applies universally. Every action we take, no matter how small, has the potential to affect others in ways we cannot predict. Ripping someone's shirt in a diner might seem inconsequential to those doing it, but for the person on the receiving end, it can be humiliating, infuriating, and even dangerous if circumstances are unknown. The universe has a way of balancing disrespect with repercussions, and sometimes that balance is far heavier than anyone anticipates. This moment also reminds us that appearances can be deceiving. The girl's quiet demeanor and casual attire masked a network of power and loyalty that the aggressors had no awareness of. It's a warning that judging people by what you see on the surface can be perilous. Actions taken without understanding the full context can trigger reactions far beyond your control. Finally, the diner incident reinforces a timeless truth: integrity and awareness matter. Knowing when to act, when to speak, and how to respect boundaries can prevent small conflicts from becoming dangerous confrontations. Conversely, ignoring those lessons can lead to embarrassment, harm, or worse. The men in the diner failed to see the bigger picture. They failed to respect someone whose very presence commanded caution. Their ignorance wasn't harmless. It was the spark that could ignite a chain of events they were unprepared for. In that single, brief act of carelessness, the diner became more than a location. It became a lesson in human behavior, a reminder that respect is not optional, and consequences, though sometimes invisible, are always real. In the aftermath of such a shocking event, it's impossible not to reflect on the deeper lessons hidden beneath the surface of the chaos. What started as a seemingly ordinary day at a small town diner had transformed into a powerful story about respect, perception, and the unseen forces that shape our interactions. It's a reminder that every action we take, no matter how trivial it may seem, carries weight, sometimes far more than we can immediately comprehend. The girl's story illustrates that appearances can be deceiving. To the aggressors, she seemed ordinary, even vulnerable, but behind her quiet demeanor lay a history, a network, and a sense of loyalty so strong it could have repercussions the men couldn't even imagine. It's a stark lesson in humility, one that underscores the danger of underestimating others or acting without understanding the full context of a situation. Respect, it turns out, is not just polite behavior. It's often a protective measure for both the individual and the community around them. This incident also highlights the extraordinary power of family and loyalty. In a world where rules are not always written, where codes of honor are passed down rather than signed on paper, crossing someone's boundaries can have immediate and lasting consequences. It's a lesson that extends beyond gangs or subcultures. In everyday life, the principle holds true. Actions that disregard others' dignity or fail to honor social and moral boundaries rarely go unnoticed. What seems minor or inconsequential in the moment can escalate into something far more serious if met with the force of loyalty and principle. Moreover, it challenges us to be more mindful of our surroundings and the people we interact with. Every person carries a story, a set of experiences and connections that are invisible at first glance. Our choices, how we speak, how we act, how we treat others, can have effects that reach beyond our imagination. In this case, what began as an act of recklessness became a potent reminder that the world is far more complex than it appears, and that there are consequences to crossing lines we may not fully understand. Finally, this story leaves us with an enduring truth. Courage, respect, and awareness are not just abstract virtues, they are essential tools for navigating life. The diner incident, though dramatic and extreme, mirrors countless moments in life where small actions lead to unforeseen outcomes. It reminds us to act thoughtfully, to consider others' dignity, and to remember that behind every face is a story, a history, and sometimes a force far greater than we realize. In the end, what happened at that diner is more than just a story of humiliation or fear. It's a lesson for all of us. It reminds us that every action, no matter how small, carries consequences. It teaches us that respect isn't optional, it's essential. And it shows that appearances can be deceiving. Sometimes the quietest, most unassuming people hold a strength and power we can't even imagine. So the next time we think an action is harmless or that someone is just another person, let this story be a reminder. Boundaries exist for a reason, loyalty matters, and choices have weight. Because in life, like in that diner, the consequences of crossing the line may not be immediate, but they are inevitable. And sometimes they come from directions we never saw coming. Let us walk forward with awareness, with respect, and with the understanding that courage isn't always loud. It's measured, deliberate, and sometimes quietly unstoppable.